We're live, General. We're live, but we shall wait for a short while so that the audience can take the time to come in. In the meantime, I'm also trying to open my Facebook and share the post so that my friends can also come in as well. And take the time to come. In the meantime, I'm also trying to open my Facebook and share the post so that my friends can also come in as well. And take the time to come. In the meantime, I'm also trying to open my Facebook and share. Hello, everyone. Who's just joined us? Please give it a while. Let us just wait for more people to come in. I just realized, General, that between us it is dinner. So here is right after dinner at 9 o'clock, and over in India is right before.
Yes, got it. Still an hour and a half for dinner time.
Right before dinner, I think.
Yes, it is still cocktail time.
Okay, so the audience is beginning to build up nicely.
Okay, they should.
For those who have just joined us, do feel free to share so that more friends can actually join and watch this live. You can start a watch party, or you can just share the link so that they can come in and watch this as well. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Inspired SME, a FB Live series brought to you by SME Magazine. It is now 9 p.m. where I am, and 6:30 in the afternoon where our guest tonight is. For those who have just joined us, welcome, and feel free to share the live so that more friends, including SMEs, can benefit from our speakers' knowledge and wisdom tonight. Tonight, we speak to Lt Gen Sudhir Sharma, a very dear friend and former Quartermaster General of the Indian Army. Having risen steadily over the years to holding a 3-star general position, commanding forces at the battlefront of India, and culminating his illustrious career serving his country as the head of a logistics operations. And I must say, this is one of the largest in the world that serves over 1 million active duty troops while managing a budget running into billions of dollars. So that's General Sudhir Sharma for you. Post-retirement, General Sharma continues to serve in various capacities, including as chairman of MitKat Advisory, a leading international defense and security consulting firm. General, we're absolutely delighted to have you with us this evening. What an honor. I have so many questions to ask you, but I believe you have prepared a presentation, and we'll let you get on with that first.
First of all, thank you, William, and thank you all my friends on Facebook of the SME Magazine, SME Entrepreneurship who are watching this. It is always a delight to chat with my dear friend, William, especially in these difficult times. And I've not prepared a proper presentation, but I just want to give you an overview of what's happening. But before I start that, just a few thoughts I had in my mind. You would all agree that we are going through one of the most challenging times, at least in our lifetime. The last pandemic took place in 1820 when none of us were there. So this was a very challenging time. 1/3 of the planet has been shut down. And everybody's locked down or stating in the movement control orders. But what intrigues me is, as a geopolitical scientist, that in an international challenge, the international forum or the globalized world has been a little slow to respond to this crisis. I'm quite disappointed that the multilateral organizations, the G7, the G20s, the United Security Council, and so many other organizations which were supposed to be providing collective leadership, some have failed to respond, or they're very slow on the start, and their role has been a little disappointing to all of us. That having said, so we are going to looking at a future after the COVID of possibly a new geopolitical paradigm. And in that context, I want to really look at Asia. And if you look around yourself in Asia, where you're sitting today, our effect or response to COVID-19 has been quite different from the rest of the world, whether it's the Western world or the Americas. You see Malaysia itself Indonesia, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, India, so many countries of the region have fought this COVID-19 collectively, and the leadership shown at the national and regional level has been quite inspiring. So that gave me a thought in my mind that we need to rethink the complete paradigm as to how we're going to handle the future. Because tomorrow we have a climate catastrophe. Are we going to respond similarly in this way where everybody hunkers down into their own countries and start looking at each other? That is something which should not happen, and that's something which is causes concern to me. My second point I want to make today before I start was that I feel that the SME sector is the heart of the nation's economy. It is a driving force which attends to the bottom of the pyramid, giving jobs to the millions of people there. And they are the ones, the entrepreneurs who are watching me today, are the ones who step out of the comfort zone, take the most difficult decisions, and run these things and push it through there. And yet, every time there's a crisis, whether it's a 2008 crisis, or there's SARS, or there's COVID, anything happens, this group is the one which is hit the hardest. Every time they are going to work hard, rebound, and come back into the mainstream while they provide the maximum resources. I find it very unfair sometimes, So therefore, in my mind, the SMEs are the actual unsung heroes. They are the poverty elevation warriors, and we must respect them, salute them, especially in a country like Asia and all countries like Malaysia, India, where entrepreneurs like you in small and medium enterprises run these countries. And therefore I'm so delighted to be amongst you people who I respect and admire, because you are the people who keep the fires burning at home and bring food home, and we are the ones who have to rebound and do that again. So the tough going gets tough, the tough get going. So with that, I'll start with my story about India. May I request Mr. Hong to put on the first slide, please? Now, gentlemen, all of you know India very well. Everybody talks about it. But I want to again bring to your attention that India is a continent. When you say what is happening in India, what you're really saying is what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Africa. I've tried to put down inside India the countries which fit into it from the population perspective, from size-wise. Nearly 16 countries of the world have fitted into one country of India. And you can see our own dear friends, Malaysia, right on the top. It is as big as my state of Haryana. So where it fits into the Indian context. So I want you to understand the context of India as a continental landmass. When you say what's happening in India, what you mean is what's happening in Europe. So what's happening in 20 countries at a time. So therefore, to give an answer on behalf of India is sometimes, a bit difficult, and sometimes you may go wrong because you're talking about one part of India when people are thinking he's talking about full India. So this is India for you. Next slide, please. And now, since we are sitting with my friends from Malaysia, I just wanted to give you a little overview of the dynamics between India and Malaysia, so that when we look at the COVID, we're able to understand what is it that takes. See the size. India is 10 times the size of Malaysia in terms of landmass, nearly 10 times. And see the population. You got 32 million, we got 132 million. And that is the numbers we're talking about. And as far as the COVID is concerned, I'm so delighted that Malaysia has been able to keep it so well under check. Today you got about something like 6,000 plus cases, and out of which active are only about 1,500, with barely 100 deaths, which I think is commendable. So I think your MCO that you've done, the kind of responsibility that you people have shown in maintaining social distancing is truly commendable, and we have a lot to learn from Malaysia in this respect. I hope you do it better countries. Now, I'd like to see the SME sector in India also is 40% of the GDP. 30% of the people, 40% of the people, 30% of GDP. What a big contribution. It is the one which runs this country's poorest of the poor. Next, please. Now, as far as the COVID status in India is concerned, as of today, by figures of morning today, we have added about 1,000 more. So roughly about 72,000 people have got the virus in India. And out of that, active cases are roughly in the range of about 45,000, but it's going to about 50,000 now. I'm told today of 46,000, and we have got recoveries of about 22,000, and we lost about 2,294, but 2,300 people have died with a mortality rate of about 3%. Excuse me. What I would like you to pay attention to is the tests that we carried out. We carried about nearly 1.6 billion tests so far. We are doing about 100,000 tests per day. and our test per million is still very low, 1213. Malaysia, in comparison, is to 2,500, double the number of tests per million of the population. So that is an area where I think Malaysia has done better. That's why I think your cases are under control, because your testing is more per numbers as compared to India. We try to catch up, but 100,000 per day is also quite a large number. We hope to ramp it up 200,000 or 2 lakh per day to do the tests in a country like India. Next, please. Now, this again I want to bring to your attention was what has happened in India. The light blue represents where COVID is not struck so violently or so much, and the darker blue shows where it has been hit. So you will see that in India, it is the western part of India which has been affected by the pandemic, while the eastern part of India, going towards Bhutan, going to Myanmar, going towards Thailand, and going towards that area, has not been so badly affected. Our states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, some of them have got 0 cases of COVID, or even maybe in the double digits. While states like Maharashtra, which you see in the dark blue, is hitting more than 20,000, 22,000, and they are the ones which are hit. So Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, Delhi, Tamil Nadu. So the western part of India and southern part of India has been very badly affected, while central is slightly affected, and the eastern part has remained fairly free from it. And we hope this trend continues and does not travel to that area also. So when I talked about India as a context, you can't see it one part of your businesses are in Odisha and east. You have nothing to worry about because there's nothing happened there, nothing happening there. But if your business is in Maharashtra or Gujarat, then you have got concern because that's the area where COVID has been impacting a little more strongly. Next, please. If just an idea as to where do we stand today, we are standing at about 70,000 today, and where we may go at the rate at which we are growing, we are about 3,500 per day is what it is with recoveries. So 115,000 is what I predict to be there by the end of the month, by the 1st of June. We'll cross about 1,15,000 cases, and after which possibly a slight dip may start taking place. I hope so, and the curve starts going downwards, but nobody's sure as yet. The concern that I've got finally before I finish off is that we are not sure whether we are at the start of the cycle of the pandemic, we're in the center of it, or are we reaching the end of it? Actually, nobody in the world will know because we get a second hit. So in India especially, I'm not sure at what stage of cycle we are in. I hope we are reaching the end of the peak cycle and we're going to go down onwards, but that's fingers crossed because we never know what's going to happen in that case. So this is the basic COVID story. Today is the 48th day of lockdown of India, and we are all hoping that by the next 17th of May or 10 days or so, the lockdown completely goes off. Our first case was on 10th of January, and the first death was on 12th of March, and we reached 50,000 by the month of May. So this is what the pandemic status in India. Things could have been worse. They are under control, but maybe we will be able to handle it better. Look at the size of the country, 1.3 billion people, and the size, and we will be able to handle it to this level. So that's what
you're a continent, not a country.
Yeah, William.
Yeah, you're a continent by your
yes,
own,
absolutely.
not just a country.
Absolutely continent. So when you compare our numbers, you compare it with Europe and say if 15 countries of Europe have done this, so India has done in this way. So in that context, we may not have done badly, but it is not the end of the story. I'm concerned that if this COVID starts spreading to the rural population as migrants go back, which I'm going to talk to you a little later when the questions come in, things may change, and I'm not sure that we are at the end of this, in light at the end of the tunnel. So my worries are still there, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we got our case in order, we got things under control, we're trying to do better to control it better. Yes, I've finished my opening remarks. Now I'm ready to start with the questions, William, and we can go them one by one and we can carry on.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. Obviously, that's very useful. Not very far from what we're experiencing here ourselves in Malaysia. You mentioned, of course, General, just now that there's a nationwide lockdown now, and I think the nationwide lockdown by Prime Minister Modi has, to some extent, flattened the curve a little bit. I think had there not been a lockdown, I think by now India may have many times more cases of COVID-19. However, if you can see, one of the key features of India is the presence of many informal businesses and many daily wage earners. And this lockdown has affected these people the most socially and economically, if you may. When do you think, General, would we see a loosening of the lockdown, especially on the economic sector?
William, I'll tell you this.
Of the lockdown.
I think, yesterday, as we speak, yesterday there was a conference between the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers of Indian states. It went on for the full day. And as we speak tonight, Mr. Modi is giving an address to the nation at 8 p.m. And it's a feeling that I've got that he's going to talk about two things today. One, he's going to lay down the economic stimulus that he's going to put for the Indian economy, what kind of monies are going to put in what sectors. That is one part that I'm expecting. And second, he's going to show what is the lifting of the lockdown plan. What has been given to me so far is that India is going to lift the lockdown in phases 1, 2, and 3, and it will go on to the end of June, by which the complete lockdown will be lifted. So phase 1 from 17th May, I think will start when we'll start opening up the sector, and we'll start opening up the sector. So my feeling is that by 17th of May, which is coming in the 10 days, lockdown will start loosening it up. India is divided into 3 zones. The green zone is where the pandemic is low, orange zone where it's medium, and red is very hard. So I think red, they'll keep it for some more time, and the orange and green, they will lift up and they'll allow business to start, especially the construction sector, the real estate sector, and so many sectors will start working. And the only problem is that whether to start the rail movement or not, because India depends upon the railways to travel across such a big country like ours. So far, the railways were not moving because it was interstate movement, and you know how crowded Indian trains are. But slowly, they've started 15 trains today onward, and they hope to take it up to 200 trains by the middle of the month, and the lockdown will slowly start lifting up. And that is as far as the lockdown timing is concerned. As far as economics is concerned, I'll give that answer separately.
So obviously, there's never a right time to actually, ease the lockdown. Until and unless the vaccine is actually developed, there's always still a risk of the virus affecting more people. So I think it is just a collective decision of the government to see, when is the right time to actually start easing this economically, so that people can actually go back and have some semblance of normalcy. I'm not sure whether that is a correct strategy or not, but obviously there's something that the government will have to consider. So again, thanks for that answer. If any of the those who has just joined us has any questions for the General, feel free to ask those questions in the comment section. But I also have one question for the audience, so that we get to know you a little bit better. If I may ask, it doesn't matter whether you're from India or Malaysia or Singapore, what is the first word that come to mind? What is the first word that come to mind when we say the word India? So type in the comment section, what is the first thing that come to mind, one word, when we say India. I think this would be quite helpful, and we'll come back and look at it after my next question to the General. So looking at the various industries in India, and India, as we have both agreed, is as much a continent on its own as it is a country. And obviously there are many industries, many different markets, even within one India in a sense. What do you think are the sectors that are most impacted by the pandemic, both positively and negatively?
Okay. First of all, before I start that answer to your question, I would like to take on from what you said, very rightly so, that India is at a very difficult crossroads. We have got, like you said, 60% of our labor force is the unorganized sector. They are the construction workers, they are the daily wage earners, they drive rickshaws, they drive taxis, they work they all work in the metro cities. And because they were in lockdown for a few months and they were away from their families, a lot of them have requested to go back home. Now, when we talk about the migrant labor in India going back, we're not talking about a few thousand, we're talking about millions. So we're talking about 5 to 10 million, population equivalent of New Zealand, are traveling in one day, going back to Bihar, Gujarat. They want to go back home, go and meet their wives, their parents, their mothers, their children, because they're all concerned with each other. So when they go back there from the cities of Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Andhra Pradesh, some of them are asymptomatic and carrying the COVID with them. Now, despite what you will say that India does not understand social distancing, especially in the villages. India has got the highest density of per square feet living in India. India is the lowest in the world. It's got 3 people living per 10 square feet. So social distancing in villages is a very anomaly. And then when you go back, there's a worry that the infection may spread to the rural part of India. That is where 70% of the population lives. That is going to be very scary. Now, we can't lock the population in the metro city because they want to go home. It's also a humanitarian crisis plus economic crisis. So they have now shifted. Most of the labor have gone back home or in the process of going back home. In the next 1 week, I expect the entire migrant labor to have shifted to their home states. Now, having reached there, and we start the industry in India, in various cities, where is the labor going to come from? When will they come back? And that is the million-dollar question. How are we going to address that? So at one stage is the life of people, one state is the economy. We're going to balance these two out. Are lives more precious or is the economy more precious? I think both are. But how do we balance with them is a big challenge which the cabinet is trying to do that. Now coming back to which sectors have been actually affected badly and which are likely to do better. Let me show this to you with the help of a slide. Mr. Ong, can you please show that slide, please? Yes. Now, I had made this slide with that question that you had in mind. Now, these are the worst affected sectors in India. First is the consumer durables. It has got a loss of nearly $10 billion already lost to it. Then you come to textiles. The reason for this loss is there are two things happening. One, there's a shortage of raw material because raw material should travel through trains, trucks, road, and arrive at various factories. The raw material is not moving because there's nobody to move the raw material. Secondly, there is no demand building up to that. And third, liquidity. Where is the money to pay the labor and where is the money to pay because revenues are not coming, the bills are not being paid. So the whole cycle has got disrupted, especially the apparel textile, which consumes a lot of manpower. There are about 1 million people sitting on machines making textiles, apparel. Now they are not there. Demand is not there, so that's a big one. It's going to take a big hit. Take a hit. Hotel industry, the world over, India is no exception. With hotel industry, I forgot to mention the airline industry. There are no planes traveling. There are no people going to hotels. All hotels are lying shut, and all airlines are lying shut and grounded all over the world. So this is the area which is going to take a big hit. I'm worried that this area will be the worst hit for a long time to come because a lot of us are going to try and avoid travel as long as it is not essential. Today, travel is going to become a very essential commodity when you are really risking it to go somewhere to business. Otherwise, these video conferences are going to be very important. Petrochemicals, because we didn't use them for 3 months. There was no use for the petrochemicals, shut down for 3 months. Nothing moved on the roads, complete oil. And William, you'll be surprised to know that India for the first time had 98% petroleum and the crude products reservoirs full. There's no place to buy the cheap oil that was being sold by the country because we had to park it. We had about 100 tankers floating with oil in the ports of India. And people are offering us oil at $10 a barrel, but we can't pick it up because there's no place to park it. Because it's not being consumed also. So it's a dichotomy. The oil is cheap, but where to put it? And that's the big area. Then gems and jewelry, which is a big part of India's export, is also down because gold import was down to nearly by 90%. India imports tons and 100 tons of gold every year to consume and send back as gems and jewelry, but there's no money. So gold import was absolutely down. And that is something which took a big hit. And next was construction, real estate. There's no labor to make people. There are no houses to buy. The surplus of store. So real estate took a very big hit. And also the road and the infrastructure area. Because in lockdown, there was no construction taking place. People have gone back and the machine is idle. Everything is standstill. So these 4 or 5 areas have been really badly hit besides the other smaller ones, which I won't name one. But these have been really badly hit. Now, before I go to the ones which have done better, any questions on this, please?
All right. So I'm looking at the comment section now. So we have Haida who said, of course, the first word that you think of when we mention India is IT hub. That's 2 words, but that's fine as well. So IT hub.
Yes.
All right. Let's continue, General.
Yeah, okay. I'll go to the next slide, please. Yeah, these are sectors which are likely to benefit because of the post-COVID. Obviously, everywhere. E-commerce is going to be a big one. Everybody is now getting on the e-commerce bandwagon, and a lot of people, get used to ordering online now. We stop traveling and do so, and it becomes a habit. I must give you a bit of history, how the world changes with everything happens. In the Second World War, the First World War, in fact, after the First World War, most of the men of the age were gone to the war and they died, or they were in fighting in millions, and there were no males left in the countries of Europe and America.
Yep.
And therefore, they had to put women in the job. So, first time women left home and started working in the offices, factories, places, etc. And when the war finished and the people came back and they were male available, but that didn't happen, that women went back because people found that they were doing very good job and women started working and they started. Similarly, when the SARS and the hit and we had a swine flu coming up in various parts of Asia, the online industry started. People got scared of going into the markets to buy stuff, and Alibaba and also people, e-commerce came up. When it came back to normal, it did not go back to normal. We still get to e-commerce. So my feeling is this e-commerce, which has started now, most of the people are ordering, will go back to a bit of normal, but 20-30% people will migrate to a lot of e-commerce. So that's going to be a big good sector. Education, my grandchildren and your children are all studying from home every day, getting the homeworks done that, and this may become one of the key sectors where the brick and mortars of schools may change, when education completely or not completely, 50% of it may get transformed into a remote and a very realistic one. Today you got such beautiful classrooms and such beautiful technology coming in, where you'll have holograms. We'll have the teacher actually standing in front of you in a 3D look, and you'll have an actual virtual classroom where you can do everything that you do in school except touch and feel, which could, people will say, okay, 3 days school, then 2 days home, or 2 days school and 3 days from home. It's not going to change, but things will change over a period of time. Medical, banking, insurance, and financial will work. People don't want financial service insurance. People want that. No problem. Medical and pharmaceuticals, big boost. Hospitals are going to come up, especially in countries like India, which are ignored, and lots of third world countries are going to spend a lot of money on hospitals, pharmaceuticals. They were manufacturing, and they will build that up in a big way. And I must say here, Malaysia has got a lot of investments in India in the hospital, in the hospital industry. Polo hospitals, I think one, global hospitals is the one. And now also I checked up, a lot of money from Malaysia is coming up in the medical profession. They're already there. So it's a good thing you can really build up on that. IT, William, you mentioned IT. IT is going to get a boost because everything remote is going to work. But I must tell you, at the present time, in the first quarter, we had a tremendous loss in the IT services sector because demand from lots of world countries which are needing it have not come in. And so big compression by Indian sector. But I think it's going to bounce back as the economy of the world start picking up. A lot of things are going to go remote again. People are going to use IT more and more, and therefore India being an IT hub can benefit. Oil sector, because oil prices are low, and India is going to benefit, and people are going to use that. And a lot of things are going to be used by oil because of it. FMCG is going to be a really fast one. The fast consumer goods are moving so fast today. The growth of that is going to be in the real big one. Again, Malaysia can play a big role in coming into it and start building up in this area. So these are sectors which are likely to benefit from the post-COVID scenario, the way things are looking. But whether it'll go back to normal, when will be normal, or what will be the new normal, I really can't say. But these are sectors which look interesting to me.
I'm actually a bit surprised, General, that you mentioned a few sectors that I would actually expected to not doing so well during this pandemic. I think that is where Malaysia and India could possibly differ because of the geography and because of the nature of the economy and the society. For example, here in Malaysia, many education providers, colleges, universities are reporting that they are suffering because students are not enrolling. Students who are supposed to be at an age where they enroll in the colleges are unable to do so because classes cannot be done. So I think that is also partially because the government has closed down all schools, all universities, and so on. So as such, many in the education business are actually struggling to find what is the next, what's the next step, what can they do, and many has actually turned into, like you have correctly said, into virtual classes, virtual marketing, virtual recruitment, and of course, everything virtual when it comes to delivery of their classes and so on. So that's one. Even the FMCG also is the other sector that has been badly affected here in Malaysia. Of course, when the lockdown here in our own merchant is called MCO here in Malaysia, there was a panic rush. Everybody rushed to the supermarket to stock up. So during that period, everything that you can find in supermarkets are all taken up. Brands that that would normally not sell are suddenly doing so well. So everything is taken off the shelf. And the problem with the FMCG is they want to now restock the shelves. They can't do so. Why? Because the supply chain has stopped. the suppliers are sending them the cartons that they want to, to put the whatever it is that they're manufacturing into cartons, and then there's also logistic issue. Lorries are not working, the truckers are not working, the delivery men are not working. So as a result of that, I think they're also having a temporary setback. But that is in Malaysia. So I'm sure, perhaps in India, the situation is slightly different.
William, I'd like to take on both your points. Firstly, what we're talking about is the sectors which are going to benefit after the lockdown is over. During the lockdown, they are suffering. But once the lockdown is over, these areas are going to get better benefit. Now, as far as education is concerned, there's a very peculiar thing happening in India. In India, I find that the family pressure, the parental pressure on children to study is so intense that they are pushed to go to school and teacher. That you can't avoid getting educated because the parents and the family very hard push to do that. So therefore, you've got to have attendance because of that. That's why schools are still enrolling. All of them are doing distance education. Nearly 90% of schools are all functioning on that remote learning. And as soon as the lockdown lifts on, I think they're going to rush and start studying again. Most schools are going to come up and educate. And FMCG, I agree with you. There was also a rush in India to buy some stores. And post-lockdown, I think people have been starved of lots of goods, and they're going to be a rush for that. As the money comes into the hand and demand picks up, I think FMCG will pick up more as they build up.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Well, General, if you really see, that I think we can both agree that business can no longer be as usual, as far as business is concerned. Even I think when the vaccine is found, India's economy and the global economy has gone through so much shock that I think business as usual is just not possible anymore. Now everyone is talking using the term the new normal. What's going to happen moving forward? What is the new normal in the context of India, you think?
I would like to answer the question in two parts. First is that I agree with you that things are not going to get normal the way they were. And a new resilient and in a economy where the supply chain is more localized is the one which is going to come up. A lot of people have realized that in the COVID area, we felt that any supply chain which was too long or too far away or had too many stops gap was difficult to do so. And therefore, people are now thinking that let us create a supply chain which is closer to the region. So I would say that, like India, would look at ASEAN, look at Malaysia, look at places where the supply chain can become integrated with India so that we are not so dependent that we have to pick up things from Europe or pick up things from China, far away, and we cannot manage our own economy. So that's the one change. It's going to be new normal. Countries are going to create the logistic chains closer to home and going to create, especially the ones which are the core sectors, medicines, pharmaceuticals, health sector, like you said so, and other oil industry, area which is going to concern the nation's core interest. People are going to put them down in home or close to home or with allies of their own. That's going to be the first thing with new normal. A second thing I see on the new normal is the liquidity. There is going to be a run for the money. People are going to look for liquidity, and that's going to be dry because there is no money, because there's been no revenue. So, like India must have lost, I don't know how much revenue they've lost in the last 3-4 months. So there's a need to put money to stimulate the economy, but there is no money available to do so. So that is going to be an area of concern, and contraction is going to take place. Now, India is losing at the rate of, I think, $4 billion a day during the lockdown. And that is the kind of losses that we're suffering because the economy has come to a standstill. And therefore, there is sometimes a need to lift the lockdown. Otherwise, we might kill more people by the fact that $4 billion worth of money is being lost every day. And we need to recover that money and put the money back into the system and do so. Now, coming back to the Malaysia-India question, I'd like to share it with the SME friends of mine sitting here. I must tell you that because of the scare of the pandemic and the fact that we lost so much revenue and the fact that the country is going into a recession, a lot of reforms have been put into place to attract foreign companies to come to India and do a lot of business. India is hoping that countries which relocate from China or other places will find place to come to India. And I feel that idle time for Malaysia and India, which has got such a great close relationship as far as business is concerned, to build some infrastructure in India. And I can tell you the areas where what's happening in India is like this. India has created a land bank of about 4 lakh hectares, which they have already purchased and kept ready. You want to come and set a business, you don't have to buy land. Land will be allotted to you by the government of India. There's one part. Second is they have refined the labor laws to say that any foreign entity which comes and does business in India for 1200 days, Indian labor laws will not apply, except for three things, which is if they die, it's for them, safety of the employees, second thing, and one more thing, which is small enough. So therefore, the second thing has been taken care of. Third is they will provide tax holiday for a few years till they set up the business and do so. So there's a right time to come. So, and which are sectors we're talking about? I wrote down there are about 8 to 10 sectors which India has noted where they want to invite or they want to give, preference to people to come in. Let me take out the name of that. Some notes. Yeah. They are the infrastructure. Incidentally, outside of Malaysia, India is the place where Malaysia has got the maximum work going in the construction sector. In fact, Malaysia has bid for and has won a road project in Rajasthan.
Yeah, the highways, the airports. Yeah.
Yes, and also building a greenfield airport of Nellore. Malaysia is building the IT park in the new capital of Andhra Pradesh, Amravati, which is what is doing in a big way. It has invested in the hospital, like I said, the Apollo hospitals, global hospitals, and is putting a fiber optic network in Karnataka. Besides that, India has requested following places where SMEs can come in is IT, telecom, banking, health sector, and e-commerce. These are the areas where we are opening up the doors and requesting people to come in, and government is prepared to give them a lot of support to build up this area and do so. So I feel that
So this is special. They call it what? The special economic zone. Are these the ones?
This is known as special economic zone. There are 232 special economic zones in India. Actually, there are 335, but 232 are active. What implies is they got the full infrastructure. They're close to ports. They're close to airports. They're close to rail hubs, and they've got the complete roads, grounds, places, and they are governed by a different set of rules and laws. If you're got a factory or a construction work in the SEZ, you are governed by a very special set of laws, which are very akin to international rules, where are very benign and friendly to the industrialist. You don't have all the stringent rules which are followed of emission land. So you get a lot of custom clearance, you get a lot of tax rebate. Don't see happen that. Sorry. The ones which are very active are in Gujarat, they are in Andhra, they are in Tamil Nadu, they are in Bangalore, and they are in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh, where you can just come and park yourself and start doing business quickly enough and start. I think the Malaysia India Business Council, which is based in Kuala Lumpur, is doing a tremendously good job. Invest India and they have worked. Your previous Prime Minister had a good visit to India about a year back, with a delegation of nearly 100 people. And a lot of things were happening in 2019, actually, till December 2019. Malaysia and India were doing a lot of stuff together, preparing for it, until the pandemic hit. And we're going to reset the relations. I think the Malaysia India Business Council will have to restart again. And there's going to be a lot of pressure to build it. And I think it can do so. And my last point to you, William, is that I have a binding faith in the entrepreneurial spirit of people of Asia, Malaysia, India. They're so hardworking, they're so innovative, they're going to bounce back very hard. Given the little bit of money, given a little bit of support from the government, I think they'll crawl back and India will bounce back and the world economy will bounce back. I think within a year's time, you can find India growing at 8% again in 21, 22 and going on for the next 2-3 years at a growth rate of 8%, all things being equal, purely because of that. My story is based upon my empirical data. You study the pandemic of Spanish flu. We had 15 million people who died, which is the equivalent of 70 million people today. And in a couple of years' time, India was back to its GDP, or 3 years' time. So I feel that given the macroeconomic structure which India is fairly good, the government is determined to do so. The people are industrious, the labor is there. I think a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of hard work in a couple of years' time, I see the bounce back of the economy and going back to a new normal of a self-reliant, regional specific economy taking shape and doing so. That is my
I totally agree with you, General. I totally agree with you. You know, I asked a question earlier about what is the first word that comes to mind when it comes to India. For myself, the first word that comes in mind is actually the word resilience. Resilience, right? Because if you think about it, India has had so many calamities, so many crises over the thousands of years. You have had wars, you have been colonized, you have been bombed,
plagues.
You have gone through all sort of crises. You know, you have got and so many challenges. And not only has India bounced back, you have continued to thrive. I think that is very apt. It's what you have mentioned. I would like to use the word resilience when we describe India, right? So once again, for those who has just joined us, you're watching the Inspired SME live tonight. We have General Sudhir Sharma, Chairman of MitKat Advisory, with us tonight, talking about India reopening after the pandemic and what SMEs and other businesses can look forward to. So I've asked the General a few questions earlier about the pandemic, the situation, how it is, about the reopening of the economy, and also talk a little bit about the new normal. So General, if you see, many businesses, including Western multinationals, have invested heavily into India. Just last month, for example, Facebook put in $5.7 billion into Jio, owned by Reliance. One of the recurring themes that I have noticed, over the past 10, 15 years that I've been doing business myself personally in India, is that even global giants have not been able to crack the Indian market, so to speak. As such, many has chosen to partner with Indian conglomerates or acquire local giants instead. An example in mind would be DHL and Blue Dart. Given that even multinationals and giants has not been able to effectively get into India, what more for small and medium enterprises? So in your mind, General, what businesses that intend to do business with India must now take cognizance of? What should they be aware of? And what must they do if they want to succeed in India?
Firstly, William, I'd like to concede the point that you make that sometimes it's difficult to crack the Indian market or the Indian mindset because Indian bureaucratic and India has, like you said, started off the colonial mindset for a long time, has made the Indian laws a bit complex. India is always worried that somebody will come and take over their land, take something, and exploit them. We always worried somebody is going to come and take away our resources. So there has been a kind of a social pressure for Indian politicians to close certain things, to take it more seriously. And that's why we have become over-democratized sometimes, and therefore things become a little difficult to do so. But in the last 10 years, I think a realization has dawned on India that this is not the new normal. And therefore, for the first time in a decade, India's ease of doing business scale dropped by 30 points and came up 30 steps up and in 1 year. And next year again jumped up by 20 years because India realized that we cannot expect to attract foreign capital, foreign companies, multinational, unless you reform yourself properly. And that reform process has started. It is slow. It is not yet perfect, but I think it is on the track. And when I mentioned to you, the latest policy which I've seen yesterday to attract foreign investors, I think is very benign. They're actually giving a red carpet treatment to all people to come to India and setting up industry, and they can do so. Apple is coming to India. In fact, there are 1,000 companies in which are in talks with India to come to and join up and start set up in India. Out of which there are 300 very active dialogue going on for them to relocate to India. And they express three concerns: land, labor, legislation. All three factors have been factored into.
So land, labor,
labor, and legislation and laws. These three factors they have put across, and all three have been addressed in this thing that land we will allot to you, labor laws will not be applicable to you, and the legislation has been put into place so the foreign capital, foreign people are protected and they don't get to. And the fourth thing which I want to share with you is that advantage of India is that once you set up a base in India, you don't have to export. You can sell in India itself. The consumer market of India itself is so demanding and there's so much required that if you set up a small setup, you can start selling in India itself. So you don't need to go for export. So if you put up a business in Taiwan or a Vietnam or a small place like Cambodia, there is no demand there. You have to actually only make for export. And this is the difference between India, that you don't have to make for export, you can make for domestic consumption also. So that's a big help it comes to it. Now, your specific question was, what can SMEs expect in India? I think the SMEs can expect the SME sector of India also to be very supportive of them. But I must tell you that in this post-pandemic, there's a feeling of, let's make in India, let's do ourselves. Ideal would be to tie up with the Indian companies. Ideal situation is to make friends with a local partner in the same business. And that can be done by business councils, by commissions. Once you join hands with a already set up small Indian company and you bring a Malaysian capital, a Malaysian expertise in engineering, and small sectors can build up and start doing the work in India. And whereas we are expecting to do that, India is looking at leather goods, saying, can we do something in leather work? Can we do some work in gems? Can we do some machinery work? Because a lot of machine exports come into from Malaysia to India. Can we have some small scale machines coming in? Can we have some apparel work going together to be done in India? Can we do some work in e-commerce? And can we do some work in the health sector by making hospitals together, pharmaceuticals together? But that's not in the SME sector. But these kind of stuff can come up into the area of India. Also, the government has said the banks can lend a lot of capital at very low interest rate to SMEs who join up and tie up with India. We're talking about interest rates. In India, interest rates are generally 12% to 8%. India is just talking about interest rate of 6% and also tax holidays for the first 2 years, and you can start paying to it. So that's the kind of thing which can happen. But SMEs, again, like I said, tough area to do, tough work. India also got a 40% SME sector, which is growing. $15 billion was the trade between India and Malaysia. I think India is the 14th largest trading partner with Malaysia, which is too less. We could go up a little more. In fact, Malaysia has invested more money in India. India has done in Malaysia, which I think needs to be corrected, which can happen as we go forward. No, the worry is there. No, India wants people like Malaysia to come in. So I think things will change post-COVID because people say, let's do something, let's save the economy, let's do quickly. So hopefully this will happen. And with the kind of entrepreneur spirit which Malaysia has got, Indians have got, these two people will get together. I think we can conquer a lot of things. I've got a lot of faith in the entrepreneurial spirit of both the countries.
General, Prime Minister Modi has come to power and continue to remain in power on the basis of three promises, I would say, right? The first one, of course, is to close the imbalance between the haves and the have-nots. The rich and the poor, in between provinces and between states and so on. So that's number one. Number two, of course, is to reduce the bureaucracy that India is famous for. So that's number two. Number three, of course, is to so that is the haves and not haves, the bureaucracy, and of course the third one is equally important, is how do you minimize the corruption that has begat and beset India for many years. So these are the three promises that Modi that has actually brought him to power. How has these three challenges been so far? Has he managed to eliminate some of these challenges now?
I must tell you that all 3 points you make across are very valid. All three are very difficult and endemic to India for a long time to come. So it's like a big ship, to turn that ship around takes some time. So Mr. Modi trying it for one term may not be possible to do it a longer time. But let me start from the first point, the haves and have-nots. I think one of the biggest damages of the globalization was this, that while we globalized and we loved the globalization, the world is flat and became more and more globalized, the richer people became richer and the poorer became poorer because big multinational corporations were benefiting a lot from the globalization. And therefore, the divide between the poor and the rich became worse actually after globalization. I'm happy this globalization has come to a halt after the trade war with China and America. And also this pandemic is going to reduce this globalization and going to bring the regionalization again together. So some of that will take place, and that can only take place because in India, the have-nots are the farmers, the agricultural people, and the rural sector. The complete Indian economy, 70% rests in the rural sector. Unfortunately, because of the way infrastructure is set up there, for them to be revived, it's going to take a longer time. Things have started changing, and things will change. I must share with you that during this pandemic, India has had the biggest bumper crop of its decade. 100 million tons of wheat has just been harvested during the pandemic in April by employing a lot of people. And therefore, there is no food scarcity. People are talking that India will have food scarcity, there'll be famine, there'll be riots. We have got so much of surplus, there's no place to stock it. I think India needs about 30 to 40 million, 50 million tons. We got about 20 to 30 million tons of food grain surplus, which we got to stock. So that's farm sector money going into the poorer sector, and hopefully that will revive the economy and help them. Second is the bureaucracy. I think bureaucracy has been tamed. It has become much better. They have been put into place. A lot of people have been sacked. A lot of changes are taking place. Corruption, not so much. I think we're talking the corruption has gone down, but I'm told that corruption is still not reached the level at which we can say it is low. It is still troubling and needs some more effort to do so. So I think in two parts, Mr. Modi has made some success, tried to give some support to the farmers and the rural bureaucracy, but corruption, still more work has to be done at the lower level. At the top level, corruption has gone down, I think, at the government level, but at the middle and lower level, it still needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed very quickly enough if you want to grow better. That's sadly is the factual part of it. I won't mince my words.
So there's more work to be done by
Yes.
Modi on his government, right?
Much more work to be done. And also, one more thing I want to share with you, William, is that there's a need to create a social balance in India. There's a lot of social unrest in India. A lot of anger boils up because people are very volatile. The young population, very young population, restless population. Young people don't take so easily to anything. So when they're locked up in lockdown, they don't like it. They want to go back home, and they don't do something, they don't like it. So when there's a need for jobs, they get angry, and they don't want to wait for one more term, 5 years for it to happen. So I think that one of the things that Mr. Modi is to address is to make sure that he creates jobs. And for that, he had to do a production facilities in lots of factories. Unless we create millions and millions of jobs, the people are going to get angry and restless, and that creates social unrest. And with large kind of population, it becomes unwieldy and strikes build up. And then the communal violence builds up. That, I think, is the social fabric of India, needs to be addressed very carefully. And that can only be done if people are gainfully employed, there are lots of jobs, people are going home and working hard, and there is not too much time spared to fight and agitate. I think that is an area which I think needs a lot of attention by this government, by any government comes in.
Thank you, General.
Right.
So obviously, I was actually hoping that there were more questions from the audience, but unfortunately, I think we don't have as many questions as we thought. So I'm going to ask you one more questions, General, and this is about China. Obviously, for many years now, I think decades now, there's an intense rivalry between China, and there's still an unofficial war going on between the two countries. So in the context of China, where do you see the strength of India economically versus China, and in what area you feel that India can get ahead vis-a-vis China?
I agree with you. See, what has happened is that India also got addicted, to a very cheap labor, efficiencies, on-time delivery of stuff, sorts of goods. So therefore, what you could manufacture in India for 100 rupees by applying 50 people, if the Chinese people came and told you, look, we'll give it to you for 80 rupees and deliver it to your doorstep, it was very, very seductive. And India got seduced by it, and everything from the worshipping idols to shoes, chappals, which we could make easily, come from India, and they land up at your doorstep and you go and sell it. So that became a big problem, and it still is a continuing problem. So what does India score above India? Firstly, I think from the quality point of view, the technology point of view, India has now imbibed a fairly high degree of technology, and therefore the manufactured goods are produced which are going to be done in India are going to be of a quality and class which can be world class. So I think the Made in India tag is nothing which to be ashamed of. It will be a good tag. Lots of things will be made in good. I'm sure people say made in China sometimes. It has got certain connotations of being dubious nature, is duplicate or patent is right. So that is one sector which India can take on. Second is laws. Very, very fair democratic laws, very, very fair judiciary, very, very independent judiciary, where you can, if you have a case or a problem with India, you can solve through judiciary. So that's a big achievement which is there. Thirdly, availability of labor, availability of skilled labor, and availability of IT backed jobs to do so. These are the areas which India can show a better head start to various countries, and it can do so. A hardworking population and language. Lots of advantage. Indians pick up language very quickly. They speak Malaysia, they speak English, they speak Hindi, and you come to here and you'll have no language problem. You can communicate with Indians anywhere. I don't think, William, you have any problem speaking to anybody in India, anywhere across the country. So that's a big boost, and education and skill. So these factors will help India to pick up certain part of businesses from China, also become a bigger economy as we go forward. And I'm sure that by 2025, not 1 year, India is going to be a $5 trillion economy, second in the world or third in the world. And by another 5 years, it's going to overtake America and become the second largest economy in the world. Per capita, we may still be bad because the population is a lot, but I think we are moving towards that because there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of ability to do so. Because of the oil sector, having shown the better prices below $50, I'm going to give a big boost to India. Should this $50 and below continue for another 5 years, you can pick up 2% GDP to India straight away. And that's going to bode well for India. And also, I think the goodwill India enjoys, the soft power, India enjoys across the world. It has got no problem with any of its neighbors, ASEAN, South China Sea. So it has got it doesn't push anybody. So there's a soft power which I think will help India. That's my feeling, because I'm an Indian, so I feel that India will do better in that way. But China has got a very organized sector. They've got a big sovereign fund. They've got big government support. They got lots of money going into it. We'll have to learn to cope with it. I think we can do so in short.
Obviously, it's been a very exciting decade over the past decade, and it's going to be a very exciting decade moving forward as well, especially for India, being an absolute giant within our continent. So thank you, General, for your very wonderful insight. I think the message is very clear. India continues to be ready for business, is open for business, and welcome business in many ways, right? And then you mentioned, the SEZ with its 3L, the land, the labor, and the legislation to enable even more foreign businesses to come in and invest and partner with India and grow together. I think thank you very much, General, for that insight. If all of you audiences out there agree with me that General deserves a big round of applause, send us your love sign or add a love sign on the comments section to tell us that the General deserves a big round of applause. Thank you once again, General. All of you have been a fantastic audience as well.
Thank you.
And that was Inspired SME. If you haven't done so, please like the SME Magazine Facebook page so that you'll be alerted of future FB Lives like this one. Once again, General, thank you and good night to everyone.
Thank you, William. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving the opportunities. And once again, my salute to these SMEs. I have too much regard and respect for them. Continue what you're doing well and look after yourselves. Stay safe in this period. Good wishes from India. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.